my father did something that forever impacted my life. And remember, he's a big guy. So he leaned down and he had these really long index fingers. And I've told this story before, but his fingers were so long because he's a big dude. And he put his hand on my head with a lot of pressure. Destin, he pressured down on my head. I could feel it compress my spine, the weight of it. And he took his long index finger and he was jamming it into my little heart. And he's pointing. And he said, "Son, look at me." And I looked him right in his face. That hand on my head and that finger pressed into my heart, his eyes beaming into my future. He said, "Son, you're going pro." And my mom shows up at the game. Literally, I'm about to receive the opening kickoff and I hear this screech from the sideline. And she's screaming, "Johnny Walker!" I look over and right before the ball is kicked, I see my mom with steam and smoke and rage in her eyeballs with her neck veins bulging, leaning over the fence. And I'm about to call timeout before the game even starts.
Like, oh man, I bet you are.
my coaches saw and they're about to call timeout. My teammates were like, John, your mama here. your mama here. And I looked at her and she said, "You better run. You better run." And I looked back and I kind of gave her like the thumbs up and she said, "Run." If you were to ask me, how do you define success? I say, success to me is the progressive realization of a dream that's worth having. And so as I was playing high school football, playing college football, getting to the pros, playing in the NFL, I was progressively realizing the dream that I always wanted, step by step by step. That's how I can measure success.
This is Eagle Freedom Presents Showtime.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Here's your host, Destin Rogers.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, I have a truly remarkable guest that is joining us. He's a man whose journey is an incredible testament to faith, to resilience, and also the power of the human spirit. My guest today currently resides in Orange County, California with his family. He is a former USC Trojan. He's also taken his talents to the NFL, both here in the States and in Europe, where he was part of a World Bowl championship, but he's also played in arena football. So we're going to talk about that. But what truly makes this an amazing journey is that he was told that he can't play contact sports or that he shouldn't play contact sports. And we're going to hear all about that because it sounds like, from the outset, it sounds like, man, this guy's got everything together, but it's the obstacles he's had to overcome to get to where he's at today. And today he is a successful real estate broker with his wife. And we'll talk about that as well. So would you please welcome to the show, John Walker, also known as Jaywalk. How's it going, man?
I am wonderful. Wow. If I wasn't so melanated, you would see my cheeks turning rosy from blushing from the wonderful introduction that you just gave me. I really appreciate that. DR, my brother. And I'm really, really honored to stand with you and your listeners and the guests today.
Well, I'll tell you what, it really is a remarkable journey. And as I said, most people would see that, man, you went to USC, you played the NFL, you play in arena football. This guy has everything going for him. But again, you were told at an early age, but pretty much you were told that you wouldn't be playing contact sports. Can you tell our listening audience today how that all came about? What happened with all that? Why is it that you were told that you weren't going to play contact sports?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I believe it starts before I even knew that I was coming into this world. So I'm an 80s baby. My mom and my father were pretty young. As parents. And in those early 80s, it was a different time. So there was a different type of recreational activity that folks like to do. And, unfortunately, my mom was just living life. So she was unaware that she was pregnant with me. So for the first 6 months of her being pregnant, she did not know. She did not know that she had a baby, and she was dabbling in narcotics. She was doing drugs, right? Just living her young life along with my dad at the time. This was before my mother developed a relationship with Christ, and before my father and her were married. So my dad was only 19, and my mom was just a little bit older. So they were just hanging out. They were hanging out in Wahiawa, Hawaii, which is where I was born. My father was recently stationed in the military there, and what ended up happening was, um, she did every type of drug you can imagine, if you can imagine that. So as a byproduct of her lifestyle, and unbeknownst to her, I'm in the womb receiving whatever she's partaking in. So I was born 3.5 months premature. Um, Apparently, I was 3 pounds 1 ounce, and I was about 3 to 4 inches long. My father says he has a picture of me in the palm of his hand, and I'm about the size of what he would describe as like a chalkboard eraser from back in the old days. So doctors told my mom, hey, you know, this child is not going to be healthy. This child has a very low heart rate. We don't see very much brain activity even at this age. This is just going to be like a little fetus that really is not going to have a chance. And from the looks of it, it only has one primary functioning lung. And the way I say it is how the doctors were describing it. This is not going to be a person. This is it. And it's not going to make it. So we don't think that you should try to go forth with this. My mom told those doctors, hey, I did not know I was pregnant. And if God put this baby inside of me, then I'm going to give my child a fighting chance. So they wanted her to essentially pull the plug. And she said, no, give my son a chance. And that's what happened. So for the first little less than 4, maybe 5 months of my life, I lived in an incubator where I had the machines that were breathing for me because I was born with respiratory disorder and blind, low brain function, low heart activity, all of the things you can imagine of a baby that was just not ready to come out, and also that was malnourished and addicted to heroin and other substances. So although I've never personally done drugs every day of my life, I could say that at some point in my life I was an addict. I was addicted to whatever my mom was consuming. And interestingly, I needed a blood transfusion. And there was one gentleman on the island who, for whatever reason, his blood in the hospital records, this is as the story goes, his blood was somehow compatible with what I needed. And my mom's or my father's combined, I guess because of the state they were in, they couldn't use their blood to help me. So there's this one person, they reached out to him. He had hospital records there, and he donated blood. And that guy essentially saved my life. And over the next several months, I grew stronger. Doctor said I started to develop eyesight, and there was more brain activity. I started to get color because I was apparently translucent, where you could see every single organ. And now I got a lot of color now, as you can see.
Well,
So, but before that, apparently I was legitimately, you could see everything that was going in. So I've always been that type of person that what's inside, you can really see what's inside of me. I've never changed from that. And that's the honest truth. So, ma'am, you this is not going to be a healthy child. He's going to have many struggles. Um, at the time, I don't believe they called it autism, but they were like, this child will have major struggles. We would consider this a mentally retarded child, is how my mom described it. Man, how wrong they were. How wrong they were.
So that in itself, I mean, just what you've just said as a parent, as your mom, uh, to have your child born like this, but for her to have the fortitude,
Mm.
the strength, and the determination and faith, there was faith there, obviously, faith that you need to give my son a chance to make it. Basically, you can say all you want to, but this is my child, and I full-heartedly believe that he's going to come out of this. Is that kind of what you get from your mom?
More than you can ever imagine. And, as her testimony goes, me being brought into this world was the wake up call that she needed, and she never touched drugs again. So
Wow.
we saved one another's lives in that regard. And her and my father got married. And like, I'm a product of God's grace, his ridiculous favor, and the only thing I could describe as extreme miracle. And that's what I
So
believe.
so you're born this way. At what point, obviously, at what point are you obviously at what age, I guess the question is, did you realize that this is how you were born? And then what kind of impact, once you found this out, what kind of impact did that have it on you at a young age?
Oh my goodness. I needed to be put in bubble wrap as a kid. I was sick all the time. So from Hawaii, we moved to Chicago, Illinois, where my father's family was from. And it was freezing out there. And that weather at times is not conducive to a child with respiratory disorder. It's just pneumonia was rampant. I would get pneumonia several times a year, upwards to 5 times a year, in and out of hospitals constantly. Just very low, weak, kind of my immune system just wasn't quite prepared to fight what the world was throwing at me at the time. So you could just imagine this mom who feels like her child is just this really fragile miracle that God has championed her to take care of, and she wouldn't let me do anything. I mean, I could go outside and play, but gosh, man, she treated me like I was made out of, fine china. If you can imagine, it's like, this is my baby, and I was so little. I was just the tiniest, scrawniest kid, just because I just was underdeveloped. I mean, imagine all the ingredients that it takes to make cookies. You get the raw eggs, the flour, the dough, and all the things, and you put it all together. You add your chocolate chips, your cinnamon, whatever your ingredients are, however you guys like your cookies, and you mix that thing up. You mix it up really well, and you can eat the dough. It tastes pretty good. But it's not really great for you. It's not quite prepared yet. Then, the recipe says you got to keep that thing in the oven for about 45 minutes at 350 degrees. Well, the way I look at it is like, I'm all those raw ingredients, but I was only in the oven for like 15, 20 minutes. So the cookie it didn't have its substance quite yet, right? It's still gooey and doughy. It wasn't firm. And it was interesting because I would always get visions of what my future self would look like when I was a small child. So I could kind of broadcast and predict a future that was like a very favorable outcome. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. And when I would talk about my dreams of doing things that were athletic and strong and brave and all the things that you aspire to be as a little guy, my dad would believe in me, but my mom was like, okay, honey, yeah, but you're too small. You're my little baby. You're my sweetie. Yeah, things of this nature. So my mom didn't know that God put a vision inside of me for who I was going to be. And she really refused to allow me to do anything physical. I mean, I was allowed to go to church, sing in the choir, do things of this nature, but nothing that a little rascal wanted to do.
So at what age were you about this time where you started to develop and start to sense your own vision about what you wanted to do in life? And as you mentioned something very important, and that is uh, she didn't see the vision that was placed in you.
Right.
And that happens a lot in life is we have our dreams, we have the things that we want to do, and others don't see that in us, but we see it ourselves and we see what we want. So again, at what age were you when you started to develop this vision about what you saw for your life?
It's a powerful moment, and I'll tell you when it was. It was so again, I'm an 80s baby, and I don't want to age myself too much, but I can remember in 1985, I was really young. I saw the Chicago Bears playing against the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game. And there was a guy on the field who reminded me of one of my favorite superheroes. And his name was Jerry Rice. And my imagination was so much as so where I saw Spider-Man on that field catching those footballs. I saw the web slinger slinging his webs and grabbing those footballs and clinging to them, and the way he moved, how graceful he was. I mean, he was the living personification of a real life superhero to me. And for the first moment, I felt as almost maybe a 3.5 year old, somewhere around there, I felt the inspiration of, well, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to do. I want to be like Spider-Man, like Jerry Rice. And I'm one of the only guys in my family screaming for the 49ers. And we're living in Chicago, you know?
Uh-oh.
So that created some
Oh,
tension.
I'm sure it
You
did.
know?
I'm sure it
You
did.
know, you can only imagine. And so moving forward, um, my father was in and out of the family, in and out of being stationed to all over places. My parents did separate when I was very young, and I think they were just too young in general at that time. Couldn't overcome some of the stuff, right? Some of the stuff of the 80s. There was so much stuff. I'll just leave it at
Yeah.
that. But there was a time when my father came home, and I'd say I was about 5 to 6, maybe 7 at the oldest. I'm not sure. I was still a really scrawny and sickly little kid. And my dad comes home and he's like, son, let's go. And he said, I'm going to take you to the store. And that's a big deal. Going to the store was a big deal. So he drives me to a store that most kids don't know about these days. It's called Kmart. So it's not quite Walmart, not quite Target, not quite Ralph's,
Right.
not quite Kroger. It's like a combination of all of it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So I go to Kmart and he takes me down the sporting goods section. And this is the first time he's ever done that. And he says, son, I want you to pick out a ball, any ball. And we're going to learn that ball, learn how to use that ball. And I'm like, whoa, I get to pick out a ball? All right, let's go. So I'm looking around, I'm grabbing tennis balls, softballs, baseball gloves. I'm grabbing all these things and I grabbed the football, but it was so big. It was way too big for my little hands. I mean, the ball was about as big as my head and my chest combined. And I was like, this is what it is to play this. I'm not big enough to catch this. And as I keep looking, then I noticed this really tiny ball made out of foam, and it had a little tail on it. And it was a Nerf Vortex football. And it had a little whistle on it. And when you threw it, it would whistle. And it was just the right size for my little mittens. And I was like, Dad, this is the ball. And he says, what is that? It's a football. He said, nah, son, we play basketball in our family. And because my dad was 6'8",
Oh, wow. Okay.
semi-pro
Yeah.
basketball. So now my father's encouraged me, no, son, we hoop in our family. Grab the basketball. And I'm like, Dad, no, I want to be like Jerry Rice. I want this ball. So he said, well, okay, son. So I put the ball inside of the cart, and my father did something that forever impacted my life. And remember, he's a big guy. So he leaned down and he had these really long index fingers. And I've told this story before, but his fingers were so long because he's a big dude. And he put his hand on my head with a lot of pressure, Destin. He pressured down on my head. I could feel it compress my spine, the weight of it. And he took his long index finger and he was jamming it into my little heart. And he's pointing. And he said, "Son, look at me." And I looked him right in his face. That hand on my head and that finger pressed into my heart, his eyes beaming into my future. He says, "Son, you're going pro. Do you hear me? You are going pro." And all I could do is just agree. I said, yeah, okay.
Wow.
Okay, Dad, okay. And he said, "All right, grab the ball." And then he said, and he grabbed the basketball. He said, "Here, get this one too." And he threw it in the cart. I was like, "Yes, 2 balls."
He did get the basketball then. That's
I was
awesome.
like, 2 balls.
Right? Yeah,
2 balls.
you were happy with just the one, but when you got out there with two, man, you were on cloud nine.
Skip to my loo, and that was the first day I ever played catch with my father.
Oh, that is fantastic. And now at this point, once you get that football, and once he has this, he leans down and he instills in you that you're going to go pro. Is that kind of where the first time where that vision that you've been having finally starts to go, it's happening. It's starting to happen.
God gave him the ability to speak prophetically, and he spoke into my life a word that I purpose my entire life around. And that's just the truth about how conviction and destiny could work. And it's so telling that your name is Destin. It's a powerful name, and it's a powerful thing that grants purpose to a young man who's searching for identity, searching for self-belonging, searching for self-significance, and believing in a compelling future that he can't yet see. And that's where I was, right?
So
go ahead.
Yeah, so here you got the football, you've got the basketball, and you've had these words from your dad. Now you have to go home and tell mom that you got a football and a basketball when she's and you can't blame her, right? You can't blame her for being very protective of you.
Not at all.
But now you've got to tell mom that you've got a football and a basketball. What's mom's reaction?
Mom's reaction is, well, exercise is good and learning how to catch is good. Okay. Learning how to catch is good. That's good. Well, and you're getting the bond with your father who you don't see very often. Okay, that's good. So, but what she didn't know is my father was a rambunctious dude. Like actually, I'm gonna just keep it real. My father was a street dude. Like my pops was him. He was out there in the streets, even though, he was in the military, he did his thing. He lived a very disciplined, regimented life, but he also was from the south side of Chicago. And we lived in a community called the Cabrini Greens. And it was a project housing community where it was one of the most dangerous and challenging environments to live in the country. Matter of fact, it was nicknamed Chirac because of the death rate and how much gun violence there was running around that community. So out of necessity, I learned attributes in survival out of necessity. And my mom didn't know that I'd already been, even at that young age of 5, into maybe 6 dozen fistfights by then. I'd already, before kindergarten, been into, I can tell you, I'd already had my lip busted and busted 5 or 6 lips myself, just because I was so small that larger kids would prey on you. And it's just how it was. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was normal. It was life. Today's Wednesday. We're fighting. Okay. It's just how it was. So it was a rumor going around the community when my dad came back to visit. They're called OGs, right? The original gangsters in the neighborhood used to talk to my dad and be like, "Hey, little John, bro, he can thump, man. Like, dudes be messing with him, but hey, he's squirrely, man. He'll bop him. He got hands." My dad was like, "My son can fight." Said, "No, man, he's knocking these little dudes out who keeps messing with him. He's not starting nothing. He's just finishing it."
Right.
And so my pops wanted to see what that was about. So I don't condone this. I truly don't, but it is a part of why I am how I am. But my father used to drive around the community and ask other parents if they had sons who were willing to play karate with me. And karate was a legitimate fist fight under supervision with adults. And you find children your age, and you guys would play karate, and it was full contact fighting. And the winner would get like $5 or something. So as a child, I was doing real life fight club with other kids in my community. And so that was teaching me courage and a level of grit and tenacity where I wasn't so afraid because I was small. Right. I was forced into these really hyper competitive spaces at a young age. And then I developed a reputation because God blessed me with some really remarkable foot quickness. I was just small, and I had to learn how to control my breathing because I was working with essentially one lung. But all of that stuff, I think at a young age, turned me into just a phenomenal athlete.
So at what point, wow, this is already a powerful interview. Everything you've described, it's just amazing. But as you're describing the things, this is the environment that you were raised in. So like you said, it wasn't a good thing. It wasn't a bad thing. It was just the environment. This is how
That's
things
right.
were, right? But at do you start actually, what point do you start actually playing contact football?
Got you. Fast forward, mini street. Well, I started playing contact football in the street before I ever played organized football. So in that community that we used to have, like, we call them hood Olympics or hood events. And like the older guys in the neighborhood would get all the kids together and we'd play football on the concrete, on the blacktop, and it would be tackle. And they would throw me the ball and I would just skedaddle. I would just really move around in a way. And my mom didn't know any of this because it was always under my father's supervision. Right. So my dad saw in me that I had a little bit of toughness and tenacity. And my mom just didn't know because she wasn't around. She wasn't around. So fast forward that, I developed like kind of like a street credibility about being a pretty small but tough guy. Then I moved to South Carolina where I get to reshape my entire identity. And I was there from age 9 to 11. And that's when football became very real for me because out there, football and tackle football, all the kids in my community played Pop Warner, and I never was allowed to play, but they were just willing to scrap. And so I would mix it up with those kids. And living there for 2 years, then we moved to Los Angeles. We moved back to California. And this is where the true story begins. As a 15-year-old, now I'm in high school, and my mom lets me run track because she sees that I'm pretty quick. She sees that I'm I have some foot speed, and track is not contact. It's not, it's just me running, Mom. Nothing's going to happen. No broken bones, no concussions.
Right.
And in the midst of me running track in my first year, I found great success. And I met this gentleman named Cred Carruth, who is the older brother of Ray Carruth of the Carolina Panthers. I don't know if you know who Ray Carruth was. Ray Carruth actually, unfortunately, paid to have his significant other murdered. Mm. And he was, it was an undercover police officer that he paid.
Wow.
And so he got busted. And he played for the Panthers with Keyshawn Johnson back in the day. But Ray Carruth was the younger brother of Cred Carruth, who was my first speed coach. And he inspired me to start to understand how to use my lungs better and how to maximize what I did have. So as I started to develop this kind of desire to want to become a football player, because that was always in the back of my head, I knew I needed to get bigger, faster, stronger somehow. So I told my mom, hey, Mom, and this was a lie. I lied to my mom. I said, Mom, I'm going to get extra credit for college if I stay at school all summer and tutor these kids in English literature. And she said, extra credit? Okay, like how? I said, I'm really not sure, but there's this program. And I gave her these documents that were totally not forged. It was real documents. It just didn't relate to what I said it did.
Right.
And I said, so Mom, so every day after summer school, so I enrolled in summer school. That gave me the opportunity to be on campus during the summer. So she would drop me off at school in the morning and be gone at work all day while I was at football practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sneaking on the football team.
So I got to say this now, most kids, when they think summer school, that's the last place they want to be in summer. And you're just the complete opposite. You want to go to summer school, but
Oh
you
yeah.
also had a reason, obviously. But yeah, that's incredible. So you went through summer school just so you could get involved in football.
There was no other legitimate way I could be on campus all day and my mom not try to supervise, like, what are you doing all day, right? I said, well, Mom, I'm going to go to summer school. And summer school was 6 hours. So that was 6 hours of summer school, and football practice started right after. And so then I said, and after summer school, I'll be tutoring kids for another 3 hours. And so my whole day, all summer, was locked in. And that gave me the chance to try out for the football team, to practice with the guys. And I made the team and did all this stuff. And we had what we call summer league tournaments and all this stuff. And it turned out I ended up being pretty good because I was still training with my speed coach and he was teaching me things about the game. I still had no football acumen, none really. I just knew how to run, catch, and not get hit, right? I didn't know how to tackle. I didn't know all the stuff. But ultimately, by my junior year, that's when I started the summer after my junior year, because I was high school going into 11th grade. I was 5'4", 132 pounds.
Wow.
I was really tiny.
Yeah.
So there was no way my mom would ever believe I was playing football. Like there's no way she can conceptualize it. But I was out there running around, and I spent 2 months with my dad in the summer, and I came back 5'11" that summer.
Man, you grew. I don't know what he gave you, but man, you shot up there.
Finally.
Right?
So then hitting that growth spurt from 10th grade to 11th grade, my body filled out, and I married that with all the work that I put in those 3 years of just learning speed and doing push-ups and drinking protein shakes on my own and just believing that something amazing was going to happen for me if I just stayed with my dream, if I just refused to give up on that vision that I had for myself. So it was my cousin, my mom's sister's niece, spilled the beans by accident. We went to the same school, but she was on the drill team. She was like a cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
And I had already set up my alibi. It was the first game of my junior year. This was my first year of playing real football. And I was starting on kickoff return, but my cousin says, "Hey, Auntie, are you gonna go see John's game?" And she's like, "Game? What
Uh-oh.
game?" Meanwhile, I had already told my mom, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to spend the night at my buddy's house over the weekend, so I'm going to go to school after school. I'm going straight to his house. I already packed my bag, my toothbrush, and everything. We're going to go down to the skate park, blah, blah, blah."
Mm-hmm.
He knew I was on the football team. The whole school knew I was on the football team. My coaches knew that my mom didn't know I was. Everyone knew. The whole community knew. Daily News knew. LA Times
Whoa.
knew. Just don't tell John's mom.
Oh
Don't,
man.
don't
Oh
tell his
man.
mama. She's gonna snatch him off the field like the water boy. It's crazy. So my cousin spills the beans, and my mom shows up at the game. Literally, I'm about to receive the opening kickoff, and I hear this screech from the sideline, and she's screaming, "Johnny Walker!" I look over, and right before the ball is kicked, I see my mom with steam and smoke and rage in her eyeballs with her neck veins bulging, leaning over the fence. And I'm about to call timeout before the game even starts. I'm
Oh
like,
man, I bet you are.
my coaches saw and they're about to call timeout. My teammates were like, John, your mama here. Your mama here. And I looked at her and she said, you better run. You better run. And I looked back and I kind of gave her like the thumbs up and she said, run. And the ball came. I caught it, slow motion. I look up the field and all I could do is hear myself breathing in my helmet. Just everything felt slow motion and surreal. And then I get smashed by like 6 guys. I climb out the pile, check all my body parts.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'm good. I'm alive. It didn't hurt. I'm not dead. And that was the beginning of my season. I went on to finish that game with about 12 tackles, like 5 pass breakups. I think a touchdown on offense because I played both ways. And everybody's like, where'd this kid come from?
Mm-hmm.
By the 4th game of that junior year, USC offered me a full scholarship.
Wow, that's just incredible. Jumping back real quick to when you see your mom in the stands. I mean, I think most of us have been there. Anybody who's been involved in sports and a parent, especially moms. Well, I don't know what it is, but when a mom yells your voice in a crowd of hundreds, you hear her voice. But
Finish.
as you're hearing run, did at any time you think I'm going to run, but I'm running off the field and I'm getting away?
Yeah, I actually thought it was all over. Like in my
Right.
mind, I was like, I did all this for nothing. And now I'm gonna be in so much trouble because I've been lying to my mom for the last 4 months. It's over.
Do
It's
you think
it's over.
do you think at some point with with everybody knowing, do you think that maybe she did know?
She did. She had no idea.
No, not at all.
No. Before
Wow.
that, I was the most completely trustworthy kid you can ever imagine. I mean, like I tried to do everything by the books. It was my mom and I. That was my best friend. That's my homie. It's me and her against the world. I have siblings, but they're so much older than me.
So take
So
us, yeah.
yeah,
So take us after that first game. Um, you obviously at some point you're talking to your mom, if you want to share that.
sure.
What was that like? You and your mom come together. It's after the game. What was that meeting like?
She said, here's the first thing she said. I was wondering why you kept coming home so black. And I was like, what? She said, every day after your summer school, you would come home and you would be 5 degrees darker, like you've been running around in the sun all day. And she said, and your little muscles was growing. And I said, so mom, you had no idea that I was actually with the football team? She said, no. She said, but honey, I've always known that you love that ball. And she said, and as long as you don't get hurt, I believe in you. I'll support you.
Wow.
And she became a ravenous football fan, like crazy, because imagine this paradigm shift for her. In her heart, believing she's got this really fragile, frail kid who she always saw had a little edge about him, right? But just, I was always on such good behavior in front of her. But she knew that I had a little chip on my shoulder. So in her mind, thinking that I'm this little lamb that she's got to protect, now seeing, no, he's turning into a man. Like this image that I've had of him, it's not real.
Yeah.
And I've done what I can do, and now he's ready to go.
Right.
And so I had to look at her and hold her by her hands and say, Mom, like you've gotten me to this place. Like, let me carry you a little bit here, because
Yeah.
God already whispered something in my heart and I got to follow it. And I can't blame my mom, Destin, because you see, so anyone listening to this, let me share something with you. Don't ever expect anyone to see eye to eye with you when God never gave them your vision. That vision was so specific in my heart, in my spirit, nothing, no one, no variables could ever convince me that I wasn't going to traject down the path that I knew I was. I had no idea how I was going to go to college. I had no idea how I was going to play football. I just knew that I was going pro without a doubt. And I knew that this is how you got to do it. Eat well, treat people well, work hard, live a disciplined lifestyle, stay away from crap, drugs, abuse, alcohol. I've never done any of it. And so, and I don't knock people who have, but because of some of my health variables, it just wouldn't work well for me.
Right.
And now I realize that God giving me one primary functioning lung, well, all he was doing was even in the playing field. He was giving those other guys another chance. Because
right.
he not, with my work ethic and all of the things that he put inside of me, I don't think any of those dudes would have ever had a chance against me.
So you really had to, one, you had to believe in yourself. I mean, that was it. I mean, you had to believe in yourself. But real quick, when you were talking about your mom, the one person that you were trying to keep the information from, because obviously she's your mom and you're worried about what happens when she finds out. Turns out when she finds out, becomes probably your biggest supporter.
My
You just
number
did,
one.
and you were just fearful that when she finds out, it's all over. But in reality, it was just the opposite. She said, "This is my boy. If you're gonna play, you give it all you got. Just
That's right.
don't come home hurt."
Don't force me to live my biggest dream and of fear, rather my biggest nightmare of seeing you laid out on a stretcher or seeing my baby broken.
And what you said about your mom, about, let me take it, because you've seen her go through life, you've seen her do the struggles, and now you're wanting to kind of take that off of her shoulders. You're taking that on now. Let me take it. Let me take the ball, right? Let me take the ball and let me run with it. At what point doing all this do you go from, I mean, it's incredible that you got the scholarship to USC from where you were at, from where you were born. Now you've got a scholarship to USC. You're playing USC. And now, guess what? Knocking on your door is the NFL. Tell us
That's right.
about that journey.
NFL stands for not for long. That's what that stands for. And the no friends list. That's what it is. So what that was like was, it was the completion of a dream that was really worth having. And so, and that's, guys, that's how I define success. If you were to ask me, how do you define success? I say, success to me is the progressive realization of a dream that's worth having. And so, as I was playing high school football, playing college football, getting to the pros, playing in the NFL, I was progressively realizing the dream that I always wanted, step by step by step. That's how I can measure success. And currently, I'm still in that dream. I'm still working in that dream, because the dreams mature and evolve with your spirit and with your experiences and with your day-to-day stuff. You get to mature that. And so the NFL was, in a nutshell, it was easier than college, significantly. I felt like the NFL was a slower game than college football. I felt like it was a lot more political and difficult to get big opportunities in the NFL, but the game itself was a lot more simplistic and disconnected. College felt like a big unity. I mean, guys, when I was at USC, look at these. These are national championship rings. You can't even see these things. But when I was there, I played under Pete Carroll with the likes of Carson Palmer, Troy Polamalu, Mike Williams, Reggie Bush, Kerry Colbert, Lindell White, Matt Leinart, and I can go on and on and on about the All-Americans, Darnell Bing, amazing athletes I played with. And we won multiple national championships there. We were a family, we were together. The NFL felt a lot more individualized, where the family camaraderie wasn't the same because of the age gap in the locker room. Some guys were 21 years old. Some guys were 33 years old with 3 kids and, been married for 10 years. And the coaches, some of them were, 30 years older than you. Some of them were 2 years older than you. And it's just different.
Mhm.
Like, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to play in the NFL, and Coach Gary Kubiak and the Houston Texans allowed me to live my dream. But I was happy. I had a 5-year professional career in and out of several leagues and playing for several different teams. And I absolutely, coming for where I come from, if I let my ego come in, I could say my career was not successful based on what I hoped for. But when I really think about how far the Lord has brought me, from the most meager, humble beginnings, from the kid that was told he was not even going to be able to see or think straight or speak, let alone run with a football in the NFL. Man, my
Awesome.
whole, my whole life has been a whisper of God's grace and love and success. So I'm super happy about it.
Yeah, you mentioned, not you obviously know playing football in high school, in the college, not a whole lot of people get even the opportunity to
Mm,
make it that far just to get into the NFL. There's
mm,
a lot of people, I mean, being on the team that, man, I want to be in the NFL. This is what I want to do. But sometimes at the end of the college career, you don't make that
it's
next leap.
true.
You don't even get to put your foot a uniform on, in the NFL, but you had the opportunity to do that. And when you talk about where you came from, all the obstacles you had to overcome just to play football and to step onto the field in the NFL, like you said, that in itself, just making it that far is a success.
It really is.
But man, I'll tell you what an incredible journey. But somewhere along the line, maybe we're going to kind of shift now. Well, I do want to touch on one thing though, because you believe staying in athletics, you are still active. You got into coaching.
Hmm.
Can you tell us about that and how important is it for you to give of yourself to the generation that's coming up?
Absolutely. So I've been a coach for 26 years, and it started what I would call the infancy stages of my personal self belief that it was going to happen without a doubt. Again, that was about 15 years old when I got my first speed athletic coach. And he inspired me so much so because I saw him as a regular guy who developed a certain level of acumen that he was able to break down intangible bits so that a kid like me could understand how to bring those skill sets into a competitive space. He was able to explain things to me in a way where I was like, you know what? He teaches me very well. But I believe there's more. I believe there's more. So if you guys would track with me for a bit, at 15 years old, I became a coach. I got my first paying customers, and I've been receiving compensation to train athletes ever since. At the age of 15, all throughout college, I trained athletes and I trained clients who would trust me. And I've always, um, with the exception of the 5 years that I was at USC, I couldn't get paid while I was training, but I trained. I trained teammates. I trained other athletes from other sports, volleyball, tennis, lacrosse, at the time, certain lacrosse, soccer athletes. While I was at USC, I was training athletes, including my very own teammates. And they liked the movements that I was doing, working on myself. And guys would say, man, Jay Walker, let me get some of that work in that you be doing. And they're like, where'd you learn this? I'm like, man, I'm inventing these drills. I've been creating these drills since I was a kid. And so I've always had this mind to like want to build and pour into others as I'm working on building and cultivating myself. So 1998, 96 through 98, I used to rent these VHS cassettes from the 99-cent rental store of Olympic sprinters from the 1996 Olympic Games. And I would watch these videos over and over again and see how they were moving, see how they were running, see what their legs look like. I would try to put it in slow motion, and I would just write in my little Scrabble book what I noticed. And I started to build and create these drills and these exercises and these routines for it. And then about 1999, I discovered the most powerful tool I've ever seen in my life called Google. I discovered Google for the first time. And I started to research how to build muscles in your hamstrings, how to build muscles in your quads, how to become an explosive jumper. And I read every single article and journal I could find, which weren't that many, maybe 30 at the time, but I read it all and I consumed it. I became obsessed with bringing in that information. And I started to build my own curriculum based on what I was learning. And so I've always carried that information with me, which is why I study biokinesiology at USC. This is why I study exercise science at USC. So now, fast forwarding, I've always looked at the game as well like a coach more than a player. Maybe that's one of the reasons why the NFL didn't last as long as I wanted it to, because my coach's lens couldn't turn off. I was too busy like coaching while I was playing, because that's what my passion was, to teach. But the way I look at it, and I hope, I'm going to go on a small tangent, but it's because I want to paint a really powerful picture of how my mind works, if that's okay.
Oh, definitely. Go ahead.
Have you ever heard of in medias res? In medias res?
No, never have.
It's a term that Hollywood uses to captivate audiences. All right. In medias res is a Latin term, but it stands for in the midst within. And the way I look at it, life in general, it's like if you really pay attention and if you really focus, you can get this crystal ball, if you will, a glimpse into your future if you're paying attention. I think the Lord does allow you to see where your potential is if you open up yourself to be receptive to his promptings, and if you don't allow negative thoughts to control your every actions and emotion. You can actually broadcast a very amazing and compelling future. And that's why I think I'm such a great coach, because I believe I have insight to see where someone can get to from based on where they are. I can help bridge the gap between where someone is today and where their true destiny lives. And in medias res, have you ever seen Pulp Fiction?
Of course. Yeah.
How about The Goodfellas?
Oh, definitely.
Forrest Gump?
Uh-huh.
Saving Private Ryan?
Definitely. Yep.
Good. How about Gandhi?
The movie, it's been a long time.
Been a long
Yes,
time.
it's been a long time.
Let me paint a picture for you, because all of those films have something very powerful in common. Different genres, different, types of film, different energy within the movie. But each of those movies were critically acclaimed, nationally accredited, with actors and actresses who went on to have very prominent careers. Every single film that I mentioned had prolific actors and actresses, and also were nominated or won multiple awards for why it was so compelling and powerful. But Gandhi, the opening scene of Gandhi, you see this withered old man, Gandhi. He's old, he's frail. There's thousands of people praying and like celebrating him and his life, his legacy. They're just happy. And he's so old, and he's got these two younger ladies who he coined as his sister or his daughters are escorting him down this pathway. Then the scene jumps to this man in a vehicle, and he's disheveled. If you guys haven't seen Gandhi, watch it. It's a powerful movie. He's disheveled, he looks distraught, and he's sweating profusely, and he looks full of anxiety. And he's walking. You see his feet. Then you see Gandhi's feet. And then you see his feet. And then you see this man collapse in front of Gandhi's knees, just falls down at his face. And Gandhi looks down at him, places his hand on his head, and he kind of like gives him a blessing, if you will. But this guy looks like he's in torment. And these two ladies who are escorting Gandhi says, Sir, the father is tired today. He has been praying for everyone all day. He must rest. The man, with bloody tears streaming down his eyes, looks up at Gandhi, and he pulls out a gun and shoots him in the chest twice. Gandhi. As he's falling to the ground, Gandhi says two words, "Oh God." Those are the last words recorded of Gandhi on earth. He falls down. and he expires. Then the scene rewinds 45 to 50 years earlier. You see a young Gandhi who's this hotshot lawyer riding a train. And I'm like, what just happened? Gandhi just died. I came to see Gandhi, but he just got killed. So, two things. There was something very off-putting about that, but also something extremely comforting about knowing the future before you had to experience how it happened.
Mm.
So for me, I experienced in medias res, just like Saving Private Ryan, Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction, The Goodfellas, all those movies that I mentioned to you. They show almost some significant portion of the film that's very like a cliffhanger, and then they rewind it to let you see how those events came to be. And all of those movies were powerfully acclaimed because humans want to know what's going to happen before we experience it.
Yes, you're right.
We all have a compelling in our nature to know what tomorrow is going to look like before we have to live through today. And so that's what coaching is. That's what I think God has blessed me with as a young child, seeing that vision of myself being a professional athlete, having my father place his hand on my head, push his finger in my heart and implant this vision, and then seeing this open vision of me in a crowd doing the thing that everyone says was impossible. In medias res, I saw my future before I had to live it. Now it was just my responsibility to walk those steps every day and get there without getting into trouble.
Right. Well, and I've talked to several people, friends that I've known who are extremely successful, who I think you pointed something out very important. And that is, if we did know ahead of time that what we were going to have to go through to get where we're at, a lot of us wouldn't do that. If we knew that
Nope.
we had to go, if you knew, if somebody told you, when you were old enough to understand, let's say 5 years old, if somebody told you at 5 years old, look, this is all the stuff you're going to have to go through to get to football, to become a coach, and to be successful. This is all the stuff you're going to have to go through. They give you a choice right now. You're going to go through it or not. Most of us would say, that's too much. I'm not going through that.
That's hard. That sounds hard. Yeah.
You're right. So, but now you've taken your life. You have your family now. How did the heck did you go from NFL to doing your coaching, which I know you still do, but now you're into the real estate business? How did that all transpire?
That's my beautiful wife,
Right.
and her name is Tara Walker, and we are approaching our 20th year of marriage this year in 2025. And we are so excited to be celebrating that. But she has been in real estate for the last approaching 14, nearly 15 years or so. And she's a broker. I'm not a broker, unfortunately. I'm just a real estate exec. She is a broker. She's the boss. And I love that because she can tell me what to do anytime.
I'm sure she loves that too.
I love it. I love it. And it took an exceptional amount of leadership for me to believe in her, for me to like say, okay, honey, I'm gonna follow you. I'm gonna do this because I see how amazing you are at this. So I always knew at some point I would dabble into real estate investment, some type of property acquisition, flipping, selling, something along those lines. It just makes it a lot easier, and I think I just get a little more teeth in my bite when I have my real estate license. So now I've been practicing real estate going on approaching 6 years now, and partnering with my wife has just been the greatest 1-2 punch ever. We run our own brokerage, the Walker Team, here in South Orange County, and we serve anywhere from like San Diego all the way down to Los Angeles, and we just do an amazing job.
So you basically have, in all reality, you've teamed up with another coach.
That's
Basically,
correct.
I mean, so how is that for you to be able to work with your wife in an industry that you both are excited to be in? Every day you get to work with her. How is that?
Like I just said, it's the progressive realization of a dream that's worth having. Like I'm every day living my dream with my very best friend. And you can only imagine, like, sometimes it gets heated because we're both strong-willed, we're both determined and competent leaders. Um, I have my opinions on how certain things should go, but ultimately, I do tend to concede to her because she's just such a genius in this. She's dedicated, like, so many years, nearly 2 decades of her life into mastery level real estate performance. And quite frankly, she's been in the top 2% in real estate transactions and deals for the last 10 years. And so I just have to shut up and sit down and listen.
You have to be coached.
Shut up and listen. And she has the same leadership skills of some of my favorite coaches and mentors in my life, which is why I can very, in a humble nature, sit back and just take her leadership so that I could be a good steward of the information that she instills within me.
Well, I'll tell you what, this has been an incredible ride that you have
Yeah,
taken us all
yeah.
on. A couple more questions before we wrap things up. You've gone through a lot, obviously. Your physical challenge, not only physical, but mental challenge. If somebody out there right now is listening to this and they're just feeling like they are overwhelmed, the
Mm,
odds are stacked against them. Whether it's something they put themselves in, whether it's the life they've been around all their lives, their upbringing. What kind of advice would you give somebody who is right now, as we're speaking right now, just going through a time in their life where they don't see a way out?
I have several thoughts that immediately flood in my mind. I'm going to use another term that's in Latin. It's called amor fati. It means the things that happen to me are the things that happen for me. So if that is true, and another way of saying it is que sera, sera, whatever will be, that type of thing. But I'm going to add a little more context to it. I'm going to say, loved ones, life, there are no shortage of challenges and remarkable levels of adversity that you will most certainly face in your life, particularly if you are in the pursuit of something powerful and positive for you, your family, and the generations beyond. Just know that you will go under attack because life, it's a war field. It is. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Control the ants. ANTS. Don't let the little ants crawl in your head. Ants are automatic negative thoughts. You must squash the ants in your life. You must squash the voices of doubt, the voices of discouragement and disbelief that will try to handcuff you from your destiny. Because believe me, you are built so uniquely powerful beyond your wildest imagination or dreams. You can do it. If a little 3 pounds, 1 ounce addicted to heroin, crack baby, blind, deaf, with one primary functioning lung, a low heartbeat, if a kid like me can push through it, and believe me, there's been some adversity. I tend to be optimistic in this phase of my life, but believe me, I have my battle scars. And I'm positive because it's taken a lot of war for me to feel this loving in my life. You can do it. You can push past, you can push. And push is an acronym we use for persevere until success happens. PUSH. Push. Control the ants. Automatic negative thoughts. Squash them. Visualize something compelling that you believe in. Give yourself a glimpse into your future by dreaming, by praying, by connecting with people like myself, like Destin, folks who can pour life into you and encouragement, who can uplift you. Find the resources that are readily available for you so that you can move forward. And then the last thing I want to say, you have to control, alt, delete. Control your thoughts, alternate the patterns, the bad habits, the bad programming that you might be doing that doesn't lead you to where you want to go, and delete the failure outcomes that are showing up because of bad habits. You can do it. Just like you reboot a program on your computer, like I had to do before this meeting today. I had to control alt delete some stuff. So you control the thoughts that come in. You alternate your habits, your daily habits, and then you delete the course that you were on to create a new pathway that can lead you to a very compelling future that I know God has for you.
Oh man, that is. Oh, do we get a mic drop at this point? Because I think that, I mean, that just wraps up everything. Jaywalk, it has been a pleasure to hear your story, and I really think that many other people need to hear your story of all the obstacles you've overcome to fulfill your dream. And everybody's definition of success is different. You know, you've got your definition of success, somebody else has got theirs. Continue to pursue the vision, as Jaywalk said, the vision that was given to you. Pursue that because it was given to you and nobody else, and nobody else is going to see that but you.
Right.
And you are responsible. You've been given that gift of a vision, and you are responsible to take that and make it yours. Last words before we wrap things up.
I believe in you. Each and every day that you wake up, you place your hand over your heart. And if you feel that heart beating, that means you have a purpose. That means you're supposed to be here. That means you have a destiny. And now, if you're confused on what to do, I challenge you to go rack up 10 points. 10 points, RAK. This is how I live my life. Go create 10 random acts of kindness every day for the next 30 days. Whether it's a compliment to someone, a friendly text, opening the door for a stranger, helping an elderly person push the cart back, the grocery cart back to the cart aisle, complimenting someone's shoes, sending a word of encouragement, buying a $1 lottery ticket and leaving it with the cashier and say, hey, the next person that comes in, just give this to them. These are ways that I live my life. Pour love, spread love, and create random acts of kindness. 10 points, rack them up every single day and see how your world starts to revolve for you. See how you start to become a net and a magnet for things that you want. Just by you going and putting love out, like attracts like, and through the spirit of reciprocity that this world is built on, you will be honored by putting the positive energy into the world. That positive energy is going to come back to you. That I promise.
That's fantastic. Real quick, how can people contact you? How can they follow you? Give them all that information.
Right on. So, guys, I've been detoxing from social media for the last 2 years or so, but I do have an Instagram. It's at John Walker Pro. I rarely check it these days, but my wife and I run a very professional, very high-end real estate company, the Walker Team Real Estate. You can look us up on Google. Just Google search the Walker Team OC, the Walker Team OC. And you can always reach me directly via email. Email is how I'm old school at the Coach Jaywalk at gmail.com. All spelled correctly, the Coach JWALK at gmail.com. And you can find me. Also, during the season, every weekday or every post football game, I do a post breakdown analysis on YouTube with a really good content creator friend of mine named USCJ Lost in the Sauce podcast. You can hear me talk USC football and all things USC.
All right, man. Well, Jaywalk, thank you very much for spending some time with us. Thank you for sharing your story with everybody. Continued success in your continued coaching, continued success in the real estate business. And again, just thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, brother. And I enjoyed myself. And thank you for letting me run my mouth and just share little insights on how I came to be who I am.
All right, Jaywalk, thank you very much. And of course, we want to thank you for joining us on this edition of Eagle Freedom Presents. And hopefully you gain some valuable information and some insight that can help you on your journey through life by listening to Jay Walk's journey through his life. Now, if there's somebody out there that you know that has a story that could resonate with our mantra of rise, inspire, and overcome, simply send us an email to eaglefreedompresents@gmail.com. That's eaglefreedompresents@gmail.com. Include their contact information and a little bit of information about them, and we'll reach out to them and see if we can't get them to be a guest on this show. Until next time, remember our mantra of Rio, rise, inspire, and overcome. See you later.